So first of all, I really wanted to emphasize here that although I am specializing, as Mario mentioned, in nutrition and food service management, I'm currently at Centennial College. Many of these things are a combination of my experiences and things that have worked for me, and a combination of what I've learned in my studies. So disclaimer, sometimes it may work for you, sometimes it may not for you. So be mindful to take it with a grain of salt. And so now let's begin. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So the first question that I wanted you guys to kind of think about, and feel free to unmute if you're brave enough, or drop it down in the chat, is what comes to your mind when you think of food in Ramadan? Samosas. Amina. I know where you're going with this. Come on, guys, let's add some more things. Pakoras, okay, I love those too. All right, I'll let more people add. Fruit chad, yes, dates. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Some leftover food, yep, that's the case. Okay, I see a fruit chad is a favorite. Milkshakes, okay. Amazing. So fried food. Okay, I'm really glad someone mentioned that. I really wanted to hit up on. So yes, we think of fruits, we think of dates, and we think of samosas, fried food in general. So notice how many of these things, specifically when it comes to fried food, we know at the back of our heads, they're unhealthy. We know that we want to be able to eat healthy, but there is barriers that are stopping us from doing that. So one of the biggest things that I want to drive home, and I really want you guys to think about, is why are you trying to eat healthy during Ramadan? What is one of your biggest reasons? Drop it in the chat, or feel free to unmute, whichever one you're most comfortable with. This may be a little bit of a tough question because it asks you to really reflect and think about what am I really trying to get out of this? So one of the reasons that we can come up with is some people may want to diet and lose energy. To have energy and to worship more, I love that. To serve Allah with a stronger body, to pick up healthier habits, avoid bloatiness, that's amazing. I love these ideas. To basically not class without fatigue. Mariam, I think you said it. I think that's a big one. One of the things that also come up is to test your desires and challenge your willpower. Can I really use this time this month to really not only challenge my willpower spiritually, but also in terms of food, to feel alert and read and increase taqwa. I love that one too, Elizabeth. So yeah, I think many of you have hit it. It's basically, we really want to, one of the biggest things we want to holistically achieve is having more energy to engage in more worship, because ultimately the whole purpose of Ramadan is to really engage yourself in much ibadat as you can for the sake of Allah. And how is that possible if we're filling our bodies with foods that make us depleted, that decrease our energies instead? As we know that our bodies are amana. Amana literally means trust in Arabic, and Allah Ta'ala has gifted us with this trust so that we must uphold it. And to do that, we try to eat healthy. So we are giving our body the nutrients it needs so that it can survive the 16, 17 hours of fasting that we do, depending on where you live in the world. So my goal today is to give you 3 ways to simplify eating healthy in Ramadan. So we're going to focus on suhoor, then we're going to talk a little bit about iftar, and then I have a strategy that I really want you guys to implement to the best of your ability. So starting off with suhoor, first of all, don't skip it. I know many of you are a victim of this. I myself am, especially in high school. I understand that as students, as myself, or as professionals, we have so many things that we have to get done in addition to what Ramadan already brings. So the idea of suhoor is like, oh, that's okay. I can last this whole day. I got this. I have enough faith. I know you do, and I know you've done it before. But it's not the great, because the whole point of suhoor, first of all, it is sunnah, but it's to make sure that you fill yourself up with enough nutrients so that you can last yourself throughout the day, so that you don't hit those depleted energy in the energy levels and you are more productive and more focused throughout the day. So my number one tip for you when it comes to suhoor is to add healthy fats to your meals. So some examples would be like chia seeds, nuts, avocados. Those are really great. And why do we want to do that? It's because fats have really awesome nutrients. They're jam-packed that help you feel satiated. That's just a fancy word for feeling full for a longer period of time. Because as you know, when we're fasting for long hours, we do our suhoor in the early morning of the day. So we want to eat as much food that can feel us, that can give us, that can leave us feeling full throughout the day. And in the beginning, it's very easy. I find that because we have all this motivation and excitement from Ramadan, our levels are really high. But throughout the month, it gets harder and harder, and that's when Allah tests us the most. So at that point that we need suhoor even more. So if we have a habit of eating suhoor throughout the month, but so when we hit those times when we are feeling low in the middle, where we don't feel as low, we're there to keep going. So my next tip is to eat whole grain carbs. Now, the difference between whole grain, think of it as the difference of eating whole grain bread versus white bread. So some examples of whole grain carbs would be oatmeal, whole wheat bread, as I mentioned, brown rice. Ultimately, what you want to do is take a look at the foods that you're currently eating and see where can I make the slight adjustments. So the idea is we don't want to remove our cultural foods altogether, because eating cultural food is a huge part of Ramadan, at least for my family. I know for a fact that when we come up with foods to eat for suhoor, they only happen to come up during Ramadan. I find that so funny, but we don't eat them throughout the year, but that makes it so fulfilling. But we want to make sure that, again, we're eating the foods that are right for our body so that we have those energy levels high throughout the day to keep us going. So one of the biggest things about eating whole grain is the fact that they have fiber. And why is fiber so important? One of the biggest reasons is because it takes longer for your body to break down. So it doesn't cause a huge spike in your blood sugar. And what happens when there's a huge spike is that it gets down very easily. It drops very easily. And that's why you become tired and fatigued very quickly throughout the day. I find that at Zohar time, I'm the most exhausted, and then even more by the time Asr hits. So it's really important that for us that we have whole grain carbs. That way our fiber is taking slower down. It is taking a while to break down, and that keeps us full throughout the day. Okay, so now we have tips for iftar. This may be challenging, and I know for me it was difficult to get used to. So the first one would be to avoid frying your food. Why? Because fried foods are high, and I mean insanely high in trans fat, which basically increase the bad cholesterol in your body. That's just stuff that's not good for you. And then they also decrease the good cholesterol as well. So we want to avoid frying your food so we avoid getting that trans fat into our system. So instead, we can try baking, we can try air frying, we can try grilling. There are tons of other ways, alternative ways of cooking your food that doesn't necessarily mean frying it. But if you, let's say you're at a party or something like that, or even in your own household, I know my household that we have a huge dining table just filled with all this amazing food. We got samosas and pakoras and spring rolls and all of this just amazing food. And you're like, oh my God, it's so thirsty. I really want to eat it. Have one. Like I said, it is challenging, and you might be thinking, no way, like this is not possible, but it is. You got to trust me here. If you think about it, even if you have at least just one spring roll for an entire month, that's 30 spring rolls. Like, let's do the math here together. It's pretty simple. Even if you have 2 spring rolls every single day or 2 fried foods every single day, you're now up to 60. And now that number just keeps on increasing the more you have it. So logically, we know that, okay, you know what? If I want to cut it down, I must start with at least decreasing the number. So if you have 5 on your plate, try it for 4, then go to 3, then go. But if you're feeling super ambitious, then just have one and see it will give you a huge difference in your appetite. Lastly, one of my biggest tips is to don't start eating as soon as you break your fast. So one of the biggest things here is that when we are fasting, like as I mentioned before, in the beginning of the day, we have those energy levels and then they deplete throughout the day. But then as soon as it's Maghrib time and we're at our lowest energy levels, we want to sit down right away and just start eating the entire table. And then once you eat and eat and eat, you become so full that afterwards, when you want to stand up and read extra rakats in Tarawih or read extra Quran, you're just so tired. You're just so, but you ask yourself, I ate all of this food. How is that possible? It's because we're overfilling it. So one of the biggest things that has worked for me is as soon as it's time to break my fast, I break it with dates, water, fruits. I first go pray, and then I come back. So by the time I've prayed, I've already adjusted a little bit, and now I'm not as hungry as I was before. I don't want to gobble everything down. And slowly, I'll realize, okay, maybe I don't want to eat everything here. Now I can actually have that one samosa that I spoke about earlier. So my last tip is actually it's a bit challenging in the sense of you might be thinking, oh, I don't have time for this. Oh, this is too much work. But really, you can give it a shot and see if it works out to you. And it's to have a meal plan. Now, one of the biggest reasons why I find a meal plan helps is number one, it lays out clearly what you're going to be eating. It can be throughout the whole month or it can be week by week because sometimes it's hard to plan for an entire month, I find. So going week by week really helps. So for me, I find that once I've laid out everything, I can clearly see what I want to put in. And when I come up with ideas, I can also look at it and be, okay, where can I make these alternatives? Where can I switch out certain things? What can I make my plate more colorful? Oftentimes we there's something called a rainbow effect in food, where we want to have foods that are in different colors so that we are incorporating all the different nutrients. So we want to have foods that are red, so like your tomatoes and your apples, things like that. You want to have foods that are, juicy and green, like cucumbers and lettuce and things like that. And then oranges, you got lemons for yellow, different types of foods that are colorful so that you're incorporating, as I said before, all the different nutrients and fiber and vitamins and minerals into your body to keep you full and your energy levels high throughout the day. So that's one of the biggest reasons why a meal plan helps. Secondly, it also allows you to give yourself buffer times. So you might have a party coming up. You might have a party that you are hosting. Oftentimes, we might need to incorporate other people's diets that you are living with in your household. Sometimes you want to eat healthy, but maybe you have members in your household that are not super keen on that. So having a meal plan allows you to incorporate the different foods that you want throughout your household and for all of your for your different members that you're living with, and gives you an overview of what needs to be cooking, what needs to be done. And so my last tip about a meal plan is you have the flexibility to change it. So nothing is constricted because you have the ability to cross things out and clearly see, okay, maybe this was too difficult for me to prepare or for too difficult for me to eat last week. Let me try something new. If it's all up in your head, then it's very difficult to figure out what worked and what didn't. Whereas when it's clearly laid out in a plan, you're ready to go. So meal plans are widely accessible across the internet. Like you can do a quick Google search and it'll give you something exactly that's on my screen. You can even create your one yourself where you have the days listed out. Over here, I've only listed out suhoor and iftar, but you can also add like a dinner if that's something you also want to include. And then something that I find is really good about a meal plan, if it works out for you for this Ramadan, you can also keep it sustainable for the rest of the year. And that will help you build that habit. It's all about starting something small and seeing how you can keep going from there. So now that is the end of my 3 tips, and I wanted to do a little bit of a breakout session and figure out what are some of the things that you guys are struggling with and that I can provide tips with you. So Mariam, do we have, can we do that since we have a little bit of time left?
Can we have a poll?
Yeah, we can do that as well. I think that might be more efficient.
Okay, okay. So let me know what you would like to be included in the poll.
I would say something like, what are some of the things people are struggling with when it comes to healthy eating?
Okay, then maybe an anonymous submission would be easier.
Okay.
Okay, so in that case, let me just give you guys something. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay, the link is coming. Yes, I will share the link in this chat. So please just go ahead and type in what you are struggling with in terms of healthy eating in Ramadan. Just go on there and we can see your responses anonymously. You can hit the plus button and just type in whatever. Type in whatever, it will be anonymous. Okay, we have our first one. So Sania, we have our first one, time frame of eating. How do you eat meals at a time later than Maghrib, 8 p.m., but having enough time for digestion before 12 a.m. so that while sleeping, our bodies are focused on digestion rather than resting?
So one of the beauty of Ramadan is it allows our bodies to actually get accustomed to that sort of routine. So somehow, well, not somehow, actually, when you're eating after Maghrib, you do have that time between 8 and 12 p.m. 12 a.m. because in that time you're not only eating and you're just sitting there, you're going to be praying, you're going to be eating, where you're going to be doing ibadat and things like that. So you have the time to like digest, and since you're walking around, you're doing different things, your body automatically adjusts to it while you're doing these things. So by the time you hit your sleep, you've pretty much digested a majority of your food.
Okay, thank you, Sania. The next one is tips on sticking to the plan I've made because I guess they fall short on staying consistent.
Okay, that is definitely something everyone struggles with. I know for sure that I do as well. So the key to sticking to a plan is starting off small. Break your plan to as small as you can. So with the meal plan that I suggested earlier, starting off with just figuring out, okay, how can I just commit to 1 day? And once I've written out, okay, I'm going to be eating this for suhoor, this for iftar, and this for dinner, try to actually see if you stick to it. And then try it for another day, then try for 3 days, and then constantly build as you go. So you're not only getting used to that, but you're also allowing yourself the freedom and the flexibility to if something changes, you have the plan, you have the flexibility to feel like, okay, you know what, maybe this didn't work, let me try something else, kind of like that.
Okay, thank you, Sania. Next up is, how do you lower your coffee and caffeine intake?
So the best thing to lower coffee or caffeine intake is to start small, I guess, and cut it down. So take a look at how much sugar you're adding to your coffee. Is it 3 tablespoons? Is it 2 tablespoons? And start small. One of the biggest things that I wanted to address in general when it comes to kicking down your habits is to see where you're at right now and how can I reduce it in increments. And one of the biggest reasons I say that is because if you try to cut out your caffeine altogether, so if you go from drinking, 5 cups a week of coffee to now 0, that's going to be impossible, because what happens is your body will not be able to adjust that quickly, and then you'll want to come back, and then you'll end up doing double the amount because you're trying to recap all of those days that you missed. So the idea of kicking back something and reducing something is to always start small and cut it down from there.
Okay, thank you so much. I guess this will be the answer for the next one as well, but I'll ask anyway, which is first Ramadan. It's their very first Ramadan, and they are overwhelmed where to start with. And yeah, so they are not sure how to get their nutrition right the first time.
Okay, so for that one, I can give you a bunch of different tips. I'll also put my email down in the chat. So I'd love to connect with you to give you some more things that are specific to your situation. But in general, I would say is to figure out, okay, what is the foods that you currently eating, and taking a look and seeing, are those foods having the right kind of nutrients? So a quick Google search can really give you a good idea of what kind of nutrients I'm currently eating. And now you can see, where can I make those alternatives? Where can I make those small switches? So for example, if you're like, okay, I really want to eat samosas and that's what I do, take a look at, where are you cooking your samosas? Are you frying them? And I mentioned before in my presentation, frying is a bad idea. Is there a possibility of other ways of cooking your samosas? If you are like, no, I don't want to try any other way, I really like my frying, is there something I can do? Yes. Take a look at the oil that you're using. Is it olive oil? Is it avocado oil? Is it oils that are good for you, that are high in that good cholesterol that I talked about? Or are they low in that? So taking a look at the food that you currently eating and trying to see, where can you make those alternatives, where can you make those switches, will give you a good start. But as I mentioned, I'd love to connect to see where I can give you some more specific information to your situation, inshallah. So put my email down below, and feel free, anyone, if you have more questions, feel free to email me, and I'll definitely answer to the best of my ability.
Okay, thank you so much, Sania. So that's done. Now, one more is that, how do you make sure you're drinking enough water in Ramadan?
Okay, so when it comes to water, we want to figure out, okay, what times are we eating and where can we incorporate that water? So we're eating at suhoor time, we're eating at iftar time, and then we're probably, if for those of you that also we incorporate dinner, we're eating at that time. So approximately, it's good to have about 8 to 10 cups of water a day. Now, obviously, that number varies. Like if you're an athlete, obviously, you should be drinking a lot more water. But of course, on average, it's about 8 to 10 cups. So at suhoor, it's having a plan to drink 3 to 4 cups then maybe about 3 to 4 cups around your iftar time, and then lastly, right before you go to sleep or wake up for the tahajjud, somewhere between that, you can have about like 3 to 4 cups. And that way you cover the 8 cups, and there it's done throughout the day.
Okay, thank you. One more is tips on cutting sweets, like chocolates, cakes.
Okay, I am a victim of that. I am a huge fan. I love baking as well, so that I'm struggling with too. So for me, I guess one of the biggest things is, if you can't see it, you can't really eat it. So in my household, I really try to avoid buying sweets in general. That way it's not incorporated into throughout the day. So then one of the best ways I would say is to eat fruits. Like, they still give you that sweetness and that craving. And I know it's not the same as like a Snickers bar or a Kit Kat or whatever, but The whole point of eating sweets in general is to get that sugar in. But if you can get that sugar in while getting other nutrients that fruits have, you're getting the best of both worlds. So just to recap, try to avoid buying it so that way they're not in your cupboards or in your fridge in the first place. And if someone else in your household does end up buying it, make sure it's not in your view. So if you are constantly opening, these front cabinets in your kitchen, see if you can put it in the back. Ask your mom to hide it, whatever it may be. So the more it's not in your view, the easier it'll be. And then try replacing it with alternatives like fruits. That is like the best option. Plus, they give you hydration too. And we all know that drinking water and incorporating enough hydration in your body is just as important.
Okay, thank you so much. Another one is, how do you make sure your nafs does not overtake you at iftar?
Okay, so I'm going to recap a little bit of that, what I mentioned during my presentation, is that to have a system. So the system that has worked for me is to eat my dates, drink my water, and eat a little bit of fruits, and then that's it. Once that's over, I go pray, and then once I finish praying, when I come back, automatically your nafs is in control because you've ate a little bit of food, you've had that in your body for a bit, and you've prayed a little bit. So now when you come back, you don't feel as hungry. So that is one of the best ways that I find to control your nafs at iftar.
Okay, thank you once again. Now in the chat, there's another side discussion happening that you should not be frying in olive oil. And is the reason because olive oil cannot handle high temperature cooking? Is that it?
From what I know, not precisely. Perhaps I can check with like my books and get back to you, Mariam, and then you can let the people that have come today know.
Okay, inshallah. Yeah, they're just having a discussion that when olive oil is overheated, it can form various harmful compounds. So, and they could even release some carcinogenic compounds.
Interesting.
Yeah, Sister Sania will check in and let you guys know, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Yes. Now, moving forward is how would you balance sleeping, eating, and ibadah during Ramadan?
One of the biggest ways I would say that is to have a schedule. That is why I mentioned the meal plan earlier before, because what a schedule does is clearly lays out to you and gives you that flexibility to change as well. So writing out, okay, what times am I going to be sleeping for and for how many hours? When do I have work? When do I have school? When am I going to be prepping for my meals? And then when am I actually going to be eating? And then where can I include ibadah? So all of those are totally possible, but it really depends on what your schedule currently looks like. So pulling up a calendar and looking at on an overview, usually the week view works best to give you an overview of your entire week and figuring out, okay, what do I have currently that I can get done today? And then where can I include all the different priorities that I have?
Okay, Jazakallah khair for the tips. So I guess we are on our last one, which is how to control appetite and not overeat. And how do you know if you are under eating?
Okay, so there's two parts to this one. The first one is how to control your appetite and not overeat. So one of the biggest reasons we overeat in the first place is because the food that we're currently eating don't have those nutrients that keep us full. So earlier I mentioned in suhoor incorporate a lot of healthy fats and good carbs. And why carbs is because I mentioned of the fiber that takes longer for your body to break down. And what that does is while it's in your body, it keeps you full longer. So that way, when you have foods in your body that keep you full longer, you're not overeating. And it makes perfect sense. Like automatically, when you have that feeling of full, why would you want to overeat? There's no need to do that. Now, how do you know if you're under eating? Is because you're eating the foods that again do not give you the right nutrients, and then very quickly you're exhausted, you're super tired, and taking a look again at the food that you're eating specifically and figuring out, okay, do they have the right ingredients that I'm looking for? Do they have my carbs? Do they have the protein? Do they have the fats? Are they colorful, as I mentioned before? Are they incorporating like, reds, orange, yellow, green, things like that? And because those rich colors actually incorporate all the different nutrients that my body needs to help me feel energized and full throughout the day.
Okay, thank you so much, Sister Sania. All of the questions have been addressed. If anyone has any question that was not addressed, or any question, anything that she can help you guys with, please either raise your hand or just type that in the chat. I guess that's it. Sister Sania, would you like to add anything else?
That's pretty much it. Jazakallah for having me today. Hope I was able to help you guys and give you a little bit of my tips. And if try out anything and anything works out or it doesn't work out, feel free to email me. I'd love to hear your responses. And yeah, Jazakallah so much.
Okay, Jazakallah Sania. Thank you everyone for showing up. Please do remember that we have 2 more series left in the pre-Ramadan series. Tomorrow will be Breaking Bad Habits, and on Friday will be the Fiqh of Fasting for 2 hours from 5 to 7 p.m. Toronto time. And then we will start with our Ramadan programs. Jazakallah khair, everyone. May Allah bless you guys, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this Ramadan a beneficial one for all of us. Ameen. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Walaikum assalam.